So I'm going to start this writing process walkthrough, going through the stages that the Writing Center has broken down. And the only thing that I'm adding in this is finding sources as part of the pre-drafting planning stage. Since they don't really cover that, and that's not something the Writing Center helps you with. If you need help finding sources, you go to the library. So we're going to start with understanding the assignment. And the first place you go to understand the assignment is the prompt, which is always going to be on eCampus. For every essay. So you have a really, I hope, clear breakdown. Certainly I try to make it detailed as to what you're going to do. And for this assignment, I'm going to use a specific prompt for a literature review of a dramatic work. Now, you may not have this exact assignment in your class, so please always go to the exact prompt that you have. This walkthrough should work for any kind of paper. As you can see, the first step is understanding your assignment and what a literature review is. And that's not something that we go over a great deal in class. If you look for literature review examples, you will find a lot of examples, but they don't focus on literature reviews of literary works. And so I want you to right now get those two ideas in your head, that literature review means the literature on the subject, not literature as in novels. Or poems or that. But this literature review is focused on a literature review of literary criticism. So for this assignment, notice that students are given a topic list, so that helps them narrow it down quite a bit. I give a very thorough explanation in all of my prompts as to what you need to put in your introduction, what you need to put in your body of your paper, what you need to put in your conclusion. I go through sample thesis sentences for each assignment so you can see what the main argument for that kind of assignment would be like, and I usually give like 3 examples so you can see different approaches that could be taken. So you should have enough information just going over the prompt thoroughly. Some other places to look are in your textbook, if your textbook covers different types of papers. For other breakdowns, there are some help with writing about literature, that kind of thing, and some more general instructions for organizing paragraphs and that kind of thing, and making literary arguments that you can find online, or not online, on eCampus that I've provided. So that's something that you can look at. And I always tell you what kind of sources you need, where to get your sources, that kind of thing. I have a link on this one that gives you some more information about literature reviews. So you can go and you can say, okay, well, what does that entail? What is some more information on that? So you should be pretty well set. As always, ask me if it's for my class, or ask your instructor if you have questions about what you're supposed to be doing. And that is another thing that the Writing Center does do, so you can always go to the Writing Center and bring your prompt with you for any assignments that you're having confusion on. I want this series to focus more on the writing process than a specific type of paper, so I'm not going to go into more depth over this particular assignment. I understand it, obviously, but those are some sources you can go to if you go further. So the next step in the process that I'm kind of grouping into this is the pre-drafting stage. So first you have to come up with a topic. In this case, for this particular assignment, you're given a topic list by your instructor, which, hey, that makes it a little easier, right? So here's a list of topics. For these topics, I have given some keywords as well to narrow searches. So for some of these works, there's not that many sources. If you look up trifles, it should be a workable list to narrow it down to 5 sources. If you look up A Midsummer Night's Dream, you're going to find so many sources that you may want to narrow it down a little more using one of my recommended keywords or some other pattern that you determine. So for another paper, one of the things that you want to do is you might want to go look and see what kind of sources you're finding. So remember, for the Blinn Library, you go to the library homepage, and we want to use the A to Z list of databases for MLA. Find the MLA database for our class. For other classes, if you're writing papers and you're looking for sources, you may want to find a different kind of database. So any sources that you're going to look up, just do a search. When we get to for my class, when we get to our research paper, I give you freedom to do whatever you want to do. So you can say, hey, I want to write a paper about Avatar. And so I'm going to do a search on Avatar and say, hey, okay, this is about a movie, Avatar, so I'm going to click on this one, and then where it says primary subject work, I'm going to click on that, and this has narrowed it down to 37 sources that all have Avatar as one of the primary subjects, so that's pretty good. What I'm going to use, the topic I'm going to use is Hunger Games. Because it's popular and because it's an example that is not on for my class, not one of your topic lists. So if I do that search for Hunger Games, I get 54 sources. I can also go click and narrow it down if I want to look at it and go to the Hunger Games trilogy as a primary subject work. Now I'm looking at 42. So I may have narrowed down something that uses Hunger Games. Sometimes there's a title that will incorporate words from that title that's not about that exact work. So you want to look at that. From here, I see I have plenty of sources for a literature review or for a research paper. It depends very heavily on research. So what I'm going to want to go do is go look at all of these sources, save the PDFs so I can access them. So here I click on the linked full text. I get this HTML. That's not going to be very easy to work with, so I want to go to PDF. Once I get my PDFs, download my PDFs, save all of them. And the first step I'm going to do is just go through each one of these sources, see if I can find full text finders. May or may not work. I'm going to look at as many sources as possible. Because this is a literature review, remember how I said some of the things would be limited by keyword? So I may want to consider how I'm limiting those things. I may want to focus on, I decided I wanted to focus on food. You can look at the side here in the subject and see what kinds of things are being added as subjects, but they might not have everything. So you see here's 3 articles that focus on gender. I'm sure that more than 3 of these at least mention gender in such a way that you could use that. So I'm going to go through and make sure that I can get at least 5. And I want to look through the whole list. I know that that can be annoying. You can do a search for food too. To read through all the titles, but you want to make sure that you don't miss something that's going to really work for you. So the first choice is, I'm not even getting anything that's food, which is weird because I did find sources that work for that. So here is my folder of my eventual sources that I found. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 articles that are related, and maybe I won't use all of those, but at least with 9, then if something doesn't fit in, I should definitely have 5 or probably more than 5. So now I've got my topic, I've got sources, and you kind of have to find your topic and sources because you need to know that you have the right kind of sources to determine your topic. When we move on, going to planning and drafting, we start making an outline. We're going to have to look at those sources more closely to see what kind of information we're working with and therefore what we're going to end up using.